Hey guys, it's Will with Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. 750 subscribers. That's crazy. We might actually be even more than that now because that's what we're at when I'm filming this video. It's going to take a minute to edit this video and put it out. Probably be out next week. So the week after when I'm shooting it. And so that's just crazy. And we are now on the path to 1,000. Cha-ching. Thank you so much. Mike edits all these videos with me. If you don't know that, he does like the technical aspects of this channel. So Mike and I are very much appreciative of all of that. That's super cool. If you feel like subscribing right now, you can hit that red button. And that would be awesome. Turn on the notifications so you know when we're posting new content, and we will be forever in your debt. Bonus points. Who is this? What, can you see what I'm pointing at? Yeah. So I had this guy when I was a kid, right? I don't know where I got him from. I have absolutely no idea. I totally forgot about him. And then my dad found him when he was like cleaning the basement or something and sent him to me in the mail. And like the pants and like the physical like structure of the figure kind of remind me of those like Karate Kid action figures from the OG Karate Kid movies, but his face almost looks like he's like a bootleg Russian Stallone or something, or even like a bootleg Russian Bruce Lee. Like I don't know who he is. Do you want to see him more close up? If anyone knows who this is, please tell me, because I'm very curious. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if I can stand him back up without him falling over. That is not the point of this video. What are we here to do today? We're here to talk about Fearless Hyena, the Jackie Chan directorial debut from 1979. This is the 88 Films release. I just watched this. I already did a review of the Blu-ray. That should be up on the channel. I will put a link in the description of this video below so you can check that out. But what I'm going to talk about is revisiting this film. I first saw this movie, I believe, in like 2010. And I saw it on a really low quality DVD. And I have not seen it since then. And at the time, I was like blowing through a ton of Jackie Chan movies, and I was obsessed with like Police Story, Dragons Forever, Project A, like that stuff. I was kind of like, I saw this movie as a curiosity. I was like, it's interesting, but like it's not that good, and there aren't a lot of crazy stunts in it. It's more just like fight scenes. And I didn't really understand the historical context of it or the importance of it or what Jackie was trying to do. And so in 2020, I have revisited it. I watched it twice last week. And, you know, I've watched, since I first saw that movie, I've watched hundreds of Hong Kong films, like, of all kinds, like stuff throughout the 80s, Heroic Bloodshed, Girls with Guns, like Johnny Toe, up to like into the modern era, obviously, a bunch of stuff from the 90s, and then also tons and tons. I've probably seen over 100 Shaw Brothers movies since I first watched Fearless Hyena, and so it's like this thing of, my context is so different now, and also I've been watching all these great 88 films, Criterion Collection, Hong Kong Rescue, like releases of these Jackie Chan films, and really diving into the history of them, so I know a lot more about that now. And my appreciation of this film was so different, and I really loved revisiting this movie and rewatching it. And so I'm kind of just talk about, I mean, it's basically just like a really fun 70s style kung fu movie where you have a lot of that stuff of like these old towns that look like very lived in, and that you see in like Shaw Brothers films. But it's less obviously a set than, you know, like the Shaw Brothers films were all like studio-bound sets. This is like shot outside. So it might very well be a set, but it looks more like lived in and more like this old kind of village where people, you know, like are living their daily lives, and not like this like pristine set, right? And you have like a lot of the countryside and like a lot of people with long hair running around doing crazy kung fu, and like the crazy weapons. You know, that's a huge thing in Shaw Brothers. There's like a couple characters in this movie who have crazy weapons. And you basically like, so Jackie Chan they tried to make him the next Bruce Lee, right? He had this contract with Lo Wei Films, and they were trying to turn him into the next huge, serious, badass martial arts star. And as we know, Jackie Chan is much more suited to doing comedy and is influenced by people like Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and stuff like that, who did like lots of physical comedy using the environment around them, which is such a staple of what Jackie does now. And so Jackie was loaned out to another production company who put him in Snake and Eagle's Shadow, and then he was also in Drunken Master. I think those films were both 1978, and those were huge hits. So Jackie came back to his contract with Lo Wei and was like, hey guys, the comedy thing is working, let me do it. And he was able to convince, and I don't think it was, you know, if you know about his contract with Lo Wei Films, I don't think it was amicable. Like, I don't think he was like, hey, let's be. I think he was kind of, there was a lot of tension in that relationship. But he was able to negotiate it such that he could write and direct and star in this film, and he had a very low budget, and they shot it very quickly. But basically, Jackie was given the opportunity to say, hey, and Mike Leader and Arna Venema do the commentary on this release, and then Andrew Stanton wrote an essay in here, and this is all stuff that they say too, and it was what I was thinking kind of while I was watching this movie. But it's very clear that Jackie is trying to create a showcase for all of the things he can do as a talent, and to show that Snake and Eagle Shadow and Drunken Master were not a result of the other people who were involved, but the success of those films and like the greatness of those films lay in what he was bringing to them. So this movie is like, it's all over the place tonally. Like, there's really silly comedy, and there's a lot of the slapstick stuff that we know. Jackie is a big fan of Three Stooges too. There's a lot of like Three Stooges slapstick stuff in here, but you also begin to see the move away from pure martial arts and into that Harold Lloyd, Buster Keaton influence, like stunt type stuff. Like, there's a scene where he's fighting a guy, and there are these benches, and they use the benches, and they're like, they hit each other with the benches, and they're like doing somersaults across the benches, and then Jackie gets like the bench up on like a little like banister and is like moving it up and down, and the guy's like going up and down like a seesaw, like that really silly comedy. And there's another scene where like they have all these big like clay jars and pots, and Jackie's like walking across them and falling, and like there's a guy who does he's like hurt himself, and so he's one of Jackie's mentors, and he does kung fu with a cane. And so like Jackie falls off one of these pots, and the guy catches him on the neck with the cane and pushes him back up, and the cane like becomes involved, and Jackie falls over like a railing kind of backwards and is like, and then flips back up. So it's like all the environment comes into play in some of these scenes. There's actually a really famous scene that was there's an homage to in Kung Fu Panda, I believe, where Jackie and one of his mentors are fighting with chopsticks, and Jackie's trying to eat like a piece of food, and the guy keeps trying to like they're taking it from each other and stuff like that. It's really funny. It's also like probably was like a nightmare to film. But also there's like serious performances in this movie too. Like James Tien is in this film, and he's Jackie's grandfather, and he turns in like a really serious like performance. And on the commentary track, Mike Leader talks about how he believes that Jackie was trying to show that he could direct serious actors and serious performances as much as he could direct himself in the martial arts scenes. He was also the fight choreographer on this film too. And the martial arts scenes are just like all over the place. And there's slapstick ones, there's really serious, really violent ones. There's like stuff where Jackie is doing like all these push-ups and dragging like these huge sacks filled with, I don't know, like rice or rocks or something like that. And it's like 100 degrees outside, like sweltering humidity, and like it shows off everything he can do physically, his really creative, inventive kung fu comedy, his ability as a director. Like, there's some really great shots in this movie. And as you know, if you've watched like a lot of the Jackie Chan stuff that he directed, like Police Story and stuff, Jackie is very good at like very clearly delineating space and people in action and fight scenes. And you really see that in this, that like he's screwing around a lot with the physical parameters of film. So he uses like these crazy fisheye lenses, and he's doing like moving camera in some scenes, and he's doing like a lot of stationary camera cuts in other scenes. And like there's one scene where like this big fat guy falls over and the camera shakes like it's like an earthquake. Like he does like he's messing around with what you can do with the form of cinema as he's learning how to direct films. But it's very well done. Like you can tell that he's starting, like he really gets how to direct these scenes, and he's really kind of starting to develop his eye as a filmmaker in addition to showing off his physical prowess. So this film was also, so I really loved revisiting it. It's really fun. It's really corny in places. It's really ridiculous and cheesy, but it's just like a really fun, good-hearted like 70s kung fu movie with Jackie in it being like his charming self. He plays the same kind of character he plays in a lot of those like Snake and Eagle Shadow, Drunken Master, Dragon Lord, where he's like this impetuous, like he doesn't respect his elders, and he doesn't listen to people, and he gets into all these ridiculous situations, and he wins all these crazy fights, and he's kind of arrogant, but he's also kind of sweet, and he learns the error of his ways, and he repents, and he like makes amends and all this kind of stuff. So this movie's actually also, for like a silly, fun slapstick comedy, it's really violent and bloody. It is maybe like the bloodiest Jackie Chan movie. So that was really interesting too to see upon revisiting it, because his films are like Police Story is a really violent movie. but it's not super bloody. And this movie has that kind of like Shaw Brothers, like 70s kung fu, like everyone like blood flying out of people's wounds and stuff like that kind of thing. So it's pretty brutal. The one other thing I wanted to mention was I've got like completely lost my train of thought right now, and I'm going to try to get back on it. I was talking about Jackie Chan. I was talking about the bloodiness. Oh, this movie was a big influence in ways that... So when I watched this movie, the most immediate influence that I saw, and this is Andrew Stanton talks about this in the essay, and Mike Leader and Arna Venema talk about it too, so I need to give them their due. That I do a channel called Adventures in Anime, and I lived in Japan, but I never got into anime, right? So I studied Japanese film, I studied Japanese culture, art history, like all this stuff in college. I lived in Japan, I studied while I was in Japan, never got into anime, and now I'm getting really into anime. So I've been watching a ton of anime movies recently, and I have a channel called Adventures in Anime that's basically my just like raw reactions to watching these anime films. And this movie was so obviously an influence on anime. Dragon Ball Z is the one that Andrew Stanton and Mike Leader both and Arna Venema all mention, and really obviously this is like, and I saw Dragon Ball Z like in the 90s as a kid, like it was on TV, and I had like some of the action figures and stuff like that. But like Naruto too, I could see how this would have been an influence on that. But also just like it has this kind of goofiness mixed with this violence and like the silliness of Jackie Chan's character. And the fact that he's kind of like, oh, kawaii, but also like this badass hero is like so obviously an influence on anime. So as Andrew Stanton also points out, this movie was an influence on No Retreat, No Surrender. There's some scenes in there, that's a Van Damme movie. And there are some scenes in there where I think Corey Yuen directed that too. I might be wrong, but I think Corey Yuen directed that. Anyway, you know, who directed like Above the Law / Righting Wrongs and like a bunch of other like Yes Madam and like movies with Jet Li and stuff like that. So anyway, there's a scene in that movie where I guess there's like I've never seen that movie, but there's like a training scene in that movie that is apparently really, really similar to some of the training scenes in this film. And you know, like even like movies like Kickboxer, obviously in all those old kung fu movies, you have the training scenes. But there's stuff in Kickboxer too, and Mike Leader talks about this as well in the director's commentary, like the house that the James Tien character who plays Jackie's grandfather like lives in out in the woods is kind of like the guy's house in Kickboxer, like the mentor guy who teaches Van Damme like the Thai kickboxing and stuff like that. So so you see that how this movie is not only really fun to revisit, but also it's interesting to watch it after I've seen so many more films and know so much more about the history of these films and see how it influenced them. So my name is Will. This is me talking about revisiting Fearless Hyena with the 88 Films release. Great release. Check it out. Coming up next on the channel, I will have a review of Dragon Lord, the Jackie Chan classic, which was just released by 88 Films on Blu-ray, and we got a bunch of other like really fun stuff coming up. I might be ranking all the classic John Woo movies. I've been thinking about doing some rankings. I thought that might be a good place to start, and just some other things like that. So make sure you sub. My name is Will. This is Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.